All right, welcome to part 3 of the Twitter clone walkthrough video. I'm going to try and go a little bit quicker, but essentially today we're going to look at the big missing area we've got here. So we've already, managed our navigation bar up here that's fixed to the top as we scroll. We've got our cover image and our profile photo. We've got these kind of tweet stats and the follow button. And this left sidebar here, and we created a 4-span column over here, and then we've got an 8-span column here. If we pull up our HTML, if you remember, we've got this, div class with column 8. So I've given it an ID of tweets just so we can reference it. And if we think about, the HTML that we're going to need here, first we kind of need to deal with this. This navigation up here at the top. So let's go ahead and use a nav for that. And we'll use nav class, which is from Bootstrap. I've got my little cheat sheet here that's commented out. And then within this nav, if you pull up the Bootstrap nav documentation, you can kind of see what the options are. We're just going to use the default setup, but basically all it's doing for us is doing the a little bit of the styling and some padding and stuff like that. So here's where you can use nav with a UL and LIs for each one. In this case, we really just have links. So we'll use this example and just, take these A's here. And we will actually use the active reference here because, we're currently on tweets. So this is kind of the active link. And then these are ones that we could jump to view those other examples. So we'll go and do our A class nav link. And this first one will have active. And that's tweets. And then we can pretty much just copy this, paste it. We'll remove the active class from these other ones. And then we need tweets and replies. And then we need media. Okay, so we can get rid of cheat sheet here. So now if we jump back to our page and refresh, so here's what we get by default, right? So we've got, a nice little navigation bar here with 3 links. They've got some default styling, which we're obviously going to need to change. So the first thing we need to deal with is this nav bar itself. So I'm going to uncomment this guy. So we'll go ahead and give it margin top of a little bit. That's going to create this space here between this nav bar and the our header. At first when I did this, I tried to add the margin top and the background color to this entire column. Remember in our in our HTML, we've got this div with column 8. The problem with that is that the column layout has a bunch of margin and padding by default. So I had trouble getting this, this border here to go all the way across, as well as doing the hover on the actual tweets. There was some, margin on each side that I couldn't get rid of without really breaking a lot of what Bootstrap was doing. So rather than, having this entire column, be background, I've just set background to each individual element, if that makes sense. So anyways, so that's why we're doing, we're specifically going to set background color on the nav, and we'll specifically set background color on our tweets as well. So we've got the margin top, we've got the background color of white, and then I also added some padding. So I added some top padding, top and bottom of 10 pixels, just to kind of give it a little bit of space on the top and on the bottom. And then I've also done border bottom of 1 pixel with this. This is kind of the gray color. Again, just recreating what they've got here with that little bit of border there on the bottom. So if we save this and refresh, you can see now we've got the white background. You can't really tell there's the border bottom, but it is there. So now we need to style our links a little bit. And you'll notice I did tweets and then the angled bracket nav because I specifically want to only target direct children, the direct child nav of tweets. I'm going to use another nav element a little bit later within the tweet themselves. So anyway, just trying to be a little bit more specific here. So if we go ahead and uncomment this, we'll see that I've targeted the A's inside of this nav, made them a little bit bigger, and also made them bold. And then we need to make the active one just the, really dark gray, almost black. Again, just kind of, here the active one is black, the rest of them are blue. So we're going to do that. And then we also want to make them underline on hover. By default, they're not just from Bootstrap. So if we go ahead and refresh, now I've got them a little bit bigger. The first one is black, and they all hover on, or they all underline on hover. So cool. So next, let's think about our tweets themselves. So, an HTML5 element that we might be able to use for this is article. And I'm also going to go ahead and give it a class of container to create a 12-column container. And then inside of this article, I need to create my row and a column layout for the tweet. So the reason that I'm doing this is because of the way that there's the profile image here on the left, and then you'll notice there's nothing under that, and then everything else is over here. So rather than trying to use margin to kind of create that effect by moving everything over, I'm just going to go ahead and create a column layout here where this will be, a 1 span column, and then this will be an 11 span column taking up the rest of the space. So go ahead and create my row. And I'm also going to add another class, no gutters. This is something that I ran into when I was working on this. So the no gutters is a Bootstrap class that will remove the margin and padding from the columns. So remember we talked about gutters are kind of the space in between column content. So in this case we want to remove that. I can show you why here in a little bit, but it's essentially to let us set our own padding and margin on the columns rather than using what they have built in. So if you're following along with me, make sure you add that no gutters class. It'll make things a little bit easier here in a moment. So let's go ahead and create our call 1 and our call 11. I'm also going to add tweet body class just so that I can specifically target that div a little bit later on. So here let's go ahead and say 1, and here let's say 11. Refresh. Okay, cool. So we've got our 1 column and we've got our 11 span column here. So now obviously we need to do our background color and a couple other things there. So let's hop over to our CSS. So I'm going to target the article. I'm going to do the background color is white. I'm going to add border bottom the same that I did for the nav bar up here. So that's just going to add that border at the bottom of each tweet in between the tweets. So use the border bottom there. And then I'm also going to give it a little bit of padding all the way around just to kind of space things out a little bit. So let's go ahead and look at that. Cool. So now I've got, padding that moved our content down a little bit. It's got the border bottom. It's got the background color. The next thing we might look at is the hover. So you notice when you hover over a tweet, it kind of gives you a different color background. Really, if you wanted to, you could use an A for this, and maybe even when you click it, have it pull up that specific tweet. Using an A for each of these, wrapping all of the contents inside an A, is a little bit tricky. I think they actually use JavaScript to handle this, but so we're not actually going to wrap everything in an A because that will cause us a little bit of pain. We're just going to use, just kind of fake it and use hover on our article itself. So in our CSS, we'll say inside of the tweet section, article on hover, and then set the background color. And this is the same color that Twitter uses for that background. It's kind of in between white and the rest of the background. So it's F5, F8, FA. So then when we refresh, we've got a hover effect on our tweets. All right. So next, let's put in our profile image. So let's take this and do image. I'm using the same image that I used for my main profile image. I'm just going to make it smaller via CSS. So you can use the same image if you want it. It should already be cropped to be square so that it doesn't skew or anything. I'm going to add this class. And then make sure you do an alt. And then close the tag. Okay, so let's see what that looks like. Boom. Got our profile image. So now obviously we need to size it and make it round. So we'll hop over to our CSS. And we'll say the profile thumbnail, we're going to give it a height of 50 pixels and a width of 50 pixels. Again, we could just do the height since we know it's square, but we want to be really precise just in case it wasn't square, and make sure that, we specifically make it square. And then the border radius is going to be half of the height and width, which will make it perfectly round. Okay, so this is looking good. We've got our profile image now, small to circle. So let's look at the actual contents of a tweet now. So we've got the profile image here that we've already handled. Next, we've got the name of the tweeter and their handle and the date. We've got a paragraph, and then we've got these navigation links down here for different interactions. So let's jump back to our HTML and go inside our tweet body here. Let's first deal with the username. So we'll use an A for this. Let's see. Oops. We'll give it a class of tweet username. And then let's use a span for each element of this. One thing you'll notice is when you hover over the actual handle here with the @ sign, this is kind of all one link, and you can click anywhere in this one link to go to that page. So we'll kind of put both of these elements here in two spans inside of an RA. This is a classic use case for a span. It's just an inline text element. It's a way to kind of differentiate different elements of text that don't otherwise have some semantic meaning or something. These aren't necessarily emphasized or strong. They're just kind of different little spans of text. So for the first one, we'll do username name. So this is the actual name. And now we need that same icon that we used earlier for verified. So we use Font Awesome and the FA-check-circle for that. and then we'll add a space, and then we'll do our other span, and we'll do username handle. And close out our elements. Cool. Next, we'll do a paragraph for our actual tweet. So I'm just going to copy this paragraph here that I've already written for the tweet. And then after that, we've got these different navigation elements for these different actions. So let's go ahead and add that as another nav bar or nav element. And then we'll do A's within these. The first one is comments. And we're going to use Font Awesome for these little icons. So the first one, if you do fa-comment-o, it's like the little comment icon, but open, meaning it's not filled in like the default one is. So that's going to match a little bit closer to what Twitter has. And then, 230 or so comments, very popular on Twitter. And then this one is retweets. And fa-retweet is the Font Awesome for the retweet symbol. And then, oops. Hearts. I guess that could be likes, but again, fa-heart-o is the open version of the heart one, meaning it's just an outline, which is going to be a little bit closer. And then after that, we have a mail or email. So we're using the envelope. Yep, and -o again for open, meaning just the outline. And this one doesn't have any text; it's just the icon. Okay, cool. So that really is all the HTML we're going to need for the actual tweet. So that includes everything we need. So let's see what it looks like. We refresh. Cool. So you can see we've kind of got the raw materials here. The layout is great. It's right where we want it. It all stays over. On this side, we might want to move it, give it a little bit of margin or something. But, we've got this link here. We'll need to adjust it a little bit, obviously. We've got our paragraph, and then we've got our links here. This looks like one of these didn't work. Here's the problem. This needs to be an equal sign. That's the problem right there. Okay, so now we've got that icon. So now we need to do some styling. So let's hop over to our CSS. The first thing we're going to do is change the font size. So we're just going to drop the font size on the entire tweet body down a little bit. Nothing here is really bigger than anything else. I guess these are a little bit smaller even, but everything's a little bit smaller than what we have currently. So we'll drop the font size. We're also going to add a little bit of margin left just to space this out a little more over here. And, or padding left, sorry, of 10 pixels to kind of move it over just a little bit. If we refresh, there we go. So it's a little bit smaller. It's moved over. Honestly, actually, I think that we don't even need that margin. So let's get rid of that. Or the padding, sorry. It's correct this way. Yeah, that's better. So let's look at the username. So let's target the username and then the username -name. we'll go ahead and make this, dark, and we'll make it bold. And then on hover, we don't want the entire A here. This, tweet username is the A. So we don't want that to be underlined. We only want to underline the name. So then here, we'll say on tweet username hover, the username name, make that underlined and make it the blue color. So let's check that out. Cool. So this is dark, but then, when this anywhere on this A is hovered over, the name becomes underlined and changes color to blue. So that's what we want. Let's go ahead and make the verified icon from Font Awesome blue. Let's also adjust the username handle a little bit. So we'll make it kind of a medium gray, and we don't want it to be bold. Okay, there we go. That's pretty good. So again, we can hover over, the handle, and it affects the styling of the name. The paragraph, honestly, is fine. If anything, I guess we could add. No, it's pretty much correct. So we're going to leave the paragraph how it is, but now we're ready to look at these icons here. So on our CSS, first we'll change the color of the A. So just by default, we want them to be, this is kind of a gray color. I got this from Twitter. So we'll set this color to all of those links. Again, we're targeting the nav and then the A's, and this is inside of the tweet body class. We're also going to add a little bit of padding left and right, not top and bottom, but just left and right, just to space them out a little bit from each other. So there we see they're gray and they're a little bit more spaced out. We also need to space the Font Awesome icon a little bit from the text. So we'll add some margin right, about 5 pixels, to the Font Awesome inside the A. Then we need to deal with the hover. So you'll notice on Twitter, when you hover over these, they change to different colors. So we'll have to target each one individually. That's why I gave them each a class for what they are, so that we can target each one individually. So the first thing we want to do is we don't want it to underline the text here. Let's refresh to get our spacing. There we go. So we don't want to underline on hover. So let's target the tweet body and then the nav and then a hover and say text decoration none to remove that effect. Then we want to set the color. So we're going to do the same one for comments and email. So we're just going to make that this blue color. This is the same, the kind of Twitter blue that we're using in several other places. Then for retweets, I got these colors. These are the exact colors that Twitter uses. So this is green, I believe. And then we will make the heart one this red color. Again, I got this from Twitter. And then the email is going to be the same. So let's refresh. And now when we have each of these, they change to the appropriate color, which is great. So now we're going to fill this out a little bit. So let's add one more text tweet, or let's add an image tweet and then another text tweet. So we'll have 3 tweets total. So I've gone ahead and created these down here. So I'm just going to copy them. Let's see, I'll get rid of this. Basically, you can just copy and paste this article here, because we've used classes for everything. So if you just copy and paste this and then change your paragraph text, to change the actual tweet. So I've got one created here. This is for the image, so I'll show you what I did differently. So I changed the paragraph here, to be different text. And then all I did is add an image. So I added the image with the source, the image, and made sure to give it an alt. No class needed. I just target tweet body and then image to do the styling. So let's go ahead and see what that looks like just by default. Cool. So, again, everything's the same. We've got the image, which is obviously way too large, and then everything else looks good. So let's also go ahead and grab this last article, just to have a final text-only tweet there at the bottom. So let's hop over to our style and see what we need to do on the image. So we're going to give it width 100%, which will tell the image, again, targeting the image inside of tweet body, to take up the full width available to it. So, that's the way that the images on Twitter are. This one here is a link specifically, but I think Bill Gates, if we go back to his, has some good image tweets. Here's one. So this is just an image, it's not a link with a preview or anything. So you can see it takes up the full width available to it minus some margin, but that comes with our container. So we've got width 100%. We've added a border radius just to create curved corners. We've added a border all the way around it. This is just kind of a medium or more of a light gray. And we've also added a little bit of bottom margin. You'll notice here the our links here are pretty close to the image, and we want them to be a little bit lower like this. So let's save this and go ahead and refresh. Okay, this is much better. So we've got our tweet with the tweet text, and then the image. It's got a border, it's got rounded corners, everything we need. Then we've got our final text tweet here at the bottom. So that's about it. I think the only thing we haven't done is added the date here, so you could add another A here for the date. And other than that, we're in pretty good shape. Oh, the only other thing too you could do is add, this little drop down caret here. You could just add the link. It doesn't need to drop down. But if you wanted to be really, really precise. But other than that, we're pretty close. We've got the tweets, and they're looking pretty accurate. So, okay, let me know if you have any questions, anything else jump out that you weren't able to figure out how to do, and we'll figure it out. All right, thanks.